On April 10th of 2012, a new fighting game hit the scene with crisp animation and an Art Deco-inspired aesthetic. I spent a few hours with it when it was free on Xbox Live Arcade, but it wasn't to my taste at the time. I say at the time because both the game and myself have changed in the last 13 odd years. It hurts my feelings to admit this is technically retro. Good lord, there are teenagers alive today for whom this game is what Super Mario Bros. Was for me. You know what? Run the title. I need a second to cope. Ugh. I'm Eric J. Chucky, and welcome to Violent Profiles, where we discuss obscure fighting games and the rosters that define them. I know I ask you to like, subscribe, comment, and share the video every month, but I really mean it this time. It'll help more people see my videos, and we all want that, don't we? As with last month's episode on Twisted Metal, you may question whether or not Skullgirls counts as obscure. Certainly compared to the juggernauts like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat it does, but one might argue it's placed next to Guilty Gear, Samurai Showdown, or Killer Instinct. It's been featured at EVO, it has a mobile gaming port with RPG deck building mechanics, and even a webtoon series with 4.4 million views as of this recording. Some of the biggest names in voice acting have featured on its roster, and the game keeps trucking in spite of a mountain of adversities. And it's good! Clearly inspired by the seminal title Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Skullgirls is easy to pick up and play, but requires some real effort to master your chosen combatant. It has some sophisticated systems under the hood and an array of snappy, visually arresting abilities that are sure to keep you bashing buttons well after you've completed the story modes. So, yeah, of course I wanted to feature it on Violent Profiles. Does this mean the floor is open for major franchises like Fatal Fury and Darkstalkers in the future? Also yes, but I still have plenty of smaller titles I'd like to touch on before we get there. First things first, a little history, and like many elements of this game's coverage, I'm going to try and keep it brief because there's a lot to talk about in general. The major players to start off with are lead designer Mike Zymont and publisher/IP holder Autumn Games. That's not to discount the work put in by Alex Ahad and Reverge Labs, their names just aren't as critical to all the tea. The game's distribution was aided by Konami, yes that Konami, who also play a part in the game's difficulties. The first major roadblock comes when Autumn Games was hit with a series of lawsuits regarding Def Jam Rap Star, a karaoke game they also published. Contracts expired and the whole Skullgirls team was laid off before those remnants reformed into Lab Zero Games. Autumn Games was happy with this path forward, but less satisfied with Konami's support. They severed ties in November 2013, and Konami countered by requesting that Skullgirls be removed from the PlayStation Network and Xbox Live Arcade by the end of the year. Apparently pivoting to the updated title Skullgirls Encore was a satisfying enough solution for all parties involved, and they made their triumphant return in January of 2014. Support for the title continued, including DLC, voice-acted story modes, and a port to Japanese arcades in 2015 called Skullgirls Second Encore. That eventually became the default version of the game and persists on modern consoles and services like Steam to this day. But that wasn't an end to the drama. In June of 2020, allegations of misconduct against Mike Zymont resulted in many key staff members leaving Lab Zero Games, and Autumn Games cutting ties with Zymont entirely. Another new studio formed from these refugees called Future Club, who are still the game's primary team as of recording. However, there wasn't an end to the turmoil, as lawsuits in 2021 and 2025 have stalled production quite severely, with the last Skullgirls update in June of 2024. What we're covering today is the roster for the base game and the characters added in the Encore DLC as they exist in Skullgirls Second Encore. Why? Well, first of all, I'm not covering anything from the mobile game because I don't do deck builders, and also because that last batch of Skullgirls DLC was called Season 1, and before legal troubles began, they were hyping up a Season 2 and an eventual story mode that portrays a fully canon series of events, unlike the individual stories available now. Sort of like NetherRealm has been doing for their games for a while now. The second Encore Season 1 characters don't have voice acting in their story modes yet, and Skullgirls has a history of revising their content for various reasons. I'm not getting into it. So I'd rather wait and see where things go and cover those entries in a future episode when they feel more complete. I'm also trying to keep my reference pool to what's available in-game and the character bios on the website, since that's sort of like the modern equivalent to an instruction manual, and 2 of the 4 second Encore Season 1 characters don't have bios there yet. The fandom wiki will be filling in the cracks for us in some places, and hey, good news, if you like lore, the Skullgirls community is awash with it. This is a thriving indie game that exists in a world after the social media boom, so there are reams of details out there for you to digest. I'm only going to give you the most choice of cuts. Anything else is at your discretion. Our story primarily takes place in the city of New Meridian in the Canopy Kingdom, roughly based on the mood and visual aesthetic of the United States after World War II. The Renoir royal family are the ones officially in power, while the Medici Mafia exercises their strength on the streets. Every 7 years, an artifact called the Skull Heart surfaces, said to grant a wish to a single woman who petitions it. Created by the trinity of goddesses, Lamia and her daughters Venus and Aeon, if the wish made is impure, the woman is transformed into an undead lich-like creature called the Skullgirl that sows destruction and causes chaos. To combat this danger, the Canopy Kingdom has founded the Anti-Skullgirl Labs, or ASG, an institute headed up by the scientist Brain Drain. We begin 7 years after the last Skullgirl's assault caused 3 warring nations to join forces and broker an uneasy peace to stop her. The new Skullgirl has emerged and is killing members of the Medici crime family. Her name's Marie. You're gonna hear about her a lot, but she's playable with the second Encore DLC, so she's not getting her own entry just yet. Her music kinda sounds like Stevie Wonder's part-time lover, though. Let's begin with the original 8, kicking things off with Peacock. A child orphaned by the war, Patricia Watson was assaulted by slave traders and left mutilated with her eyes gouged out.
Kids, could you lighten up a little?
Her body was recovered by Dr. Avian of ASG Lab 8, and he saved her by turning her into a weapon against the Skullgirl using a piece of biotechnology called the Argus system. Though she can once again walk and talk, her mind has been fractured by the experience, and she sees the world more like her favorite cartoon show, Annie Girl of the Stars. This grants her a goofy arsenal of guns, bombs, gadgets, and minions like Avery, Andy Anvil, Tommy 10 Tons, George Bomb, and Lonesome Lenny to make her the game's zoniest zoner. While on that pursuit, Lab 8 is attacked by the Skullgirl and Valentine, resulting in Dr. Avian's demise. Peacock swears revenge, but is surprised to learn the new Skullgirl is Marie, a girl she knew from her time at the orphanage. Though she is forced to destroy Marie and the wicked Skullheart, she commits to finish the fight against the Medicis, blasting a path of revenge against the criminals responsible for much of the tragedy that has afflicted her life. Crown Princess of the Canopied Kingdom, Parasol is a capable crime-fighting special agent beloved by New Meridian and supported by her military unit, the Black Egrets. These show up in many of her moves to act as minions and damage sponges, though she also employs a cool trap gun. Her primary means of attack is an artifact called a living weapon, an almost sentient armament that is in this case a parasol named Krieg. Her mother was the previous Skullgirl, so she's got strong feelings about the latest incarnation and the threat it poses to her people. So she's quick to drop an ice cream date with her little sister Umbrella to dash off and confront Marie. Parasol and the Egrets track her down, but by the time they arrive, Umbrella is blocking any clean shot as she can sense that resonance of her mother within the Skullgirl. Afraid she may inadvertently become a Skullgirl herself, Parasol pursues them to the catacombs below the Grand Cathedral of the Divine Trinity and defeats Marie. Her instinct is to destroy the Skullheart, but with Umbrella so close and time of the essence, she can't take that risk. This is wise, actually, because in a previous draft of her ending, she does destroy the Skullheart, and it causes both she and Umbrella to die in the blast. Instead, Parasol wishes her little sister never become the Skullgirl, which is fulfilled by slating Parasol herself as the next host of its power. In 7 years, she will cross into undeath, so she begins the difficult journey of seeing her sister trained to defeat the next Skullgirl, knowing exactly how emotionally impossible that might be. Philia is an amnesiac high schooler grafted with a parasite named Samson. Parasites in this sense are creatures, entities, organisms that form a symbiotic relationship with their hosts, not unlike Marvel's Venom. You can see a lot of influence in her morphic attacks, though for obvious reasons hers are more hair-centric. They also make synthetic parasites such as Peacock's pal Avery. Philia is looking for the Skullheart to wish for a restored memory when she's confronted by the deranged cyborg Painwheel, who recognizes Philia and tries to jog her memory by introducing herself as Carol. Their meeting is fleeting, so Samson and Philia follow to the cathedral and wind up confronting Marie. The Skullgirl announces the only thing she knows about Philia is that she has Medici blood and thus must be punished. After emerging from the conflict victorious, Philia agrees to let go of her past and instead wishes for Painwheel to be returned to her normal life. The Skullheart dubs her wish almost pure and says it will make her transformation into the Skullgirl slow so that she may enjoy her time by Carol's side. If you'd prefer Painwheel's perspective, she is the horrific creation of Brain Drain and Valentine at ASG's clandestine Lab 0, making her a dark mirror of exploitation and madness to Peacock's whimsy. The main method she uses to attack is, predictably, a buzzsaw armature device that affords her easy multi-hit combos. She's augmented by 2 synthetic parasites, the Gay Bulg Matrix and Buer Drive, making her a terror in combat. As she battles her way to Marie, we discover that her brainwashing is weaker the closer she gets to the Skullgirl, theoretically because of the Skullgirl blood that was used in her augmentation. Her desires turn from following her orders to seeking revenge on Valentine, destroying her, Marie, and the Skullheart itself before considering her work done and returning home. Horrified by her current visage, Carol's parents reject her, and she's called back to Lab 0 by Brain Drain, who assumes that the Skullgirl's death means Painwheel can once again be controlled. He is wrong, and we leave off as Painwheel returns to finish her retribution against the man that made her a monster. Our next fighter is Miss Fortune, first named Nadia. She seeks revenge against the Medicis for killing her adopted family, a group of thieves called the Fishbone Gang. She also doesn't take kindly to racist perverts who threaten her friends, and, oh shit,
Decapitation!
Yes, that's right, Miss Fortune is the only surviving member because she swallowed an artifact the Fishbone gang stole from the Medicis called the Life Gem. It's suffused into her body, granting her regeneration, an ability to survive dismemberment, and a little control over her detached body parts. This factors significantly into her fighting style, my favorite parts involving using her head as a minion/projectile. Mega Man 8's dumb soccer ball could never. After defeating the typical trio of bosses, Fortune realizes the Skull Heart offers not peace and opportunity, but corruption. She destroys the artifact, mourning her lost family, but grateful for the people she's bonded with in the time since. Fate being cruel, Fortune returns home to find them kidnapped by the Medicis for some nefarious purpose. Detective Irvin is on the scene and accepts her help in bringing the mob to justice. Cerebella is an accomplished acrobat in the Cirque du Car and a heavy for the Medicis who is content to be kept in the dark about how sinister the people she's loyal to truly are. In addition to her own athletic, charms, good lord, Cerebella wears the living weapon Vice Versa, an arm hat thing made by her mother that allows her to do big punches. Like, really big. The object of her affection, Vitale Medici, sends her to retrieve the life gem stolen by Miss Fortune. Through some clever maneuvering on Fortune's part, this results in Cerebella defeating Marie, only for the feline thief to try and snatch the Skull Heart at the last minute. Cerebella stops her and uses the strength of Vice Versa to crush Miss Fortune's body back into a life gem the same way the pressure creates diamonds. Despite Vitale being happy to see his prize returned, the journey has clearly had an impact on Cerebella and her opinion of the Medicis, and her face betrays the newfound discomfort with her current position. As much of a downer as this story is, I actually appreciate how it's structured. It's not often you get a nice person playing patsy to the bad guys, and when you do, it's usually done for laughs, whereas this is more serious. I like it. This brings us to the mini-bosses, starting with Valentine the Ninja Nurse. Good lord. The only survivor of the ASG Special Ops team Last Hope, Valentine employs a variety of hospital-themed weapons to dismember her opponents, and is kicky fast as you'd expect. In most other stories, Valentine is presented as sinister, cocky, and flirtatious. However, in her own tales, she's more detached and duplicitous. At turns, she's working for Brain Drain, for the Skullgirl, and for herself, depending on what most suits her needs in the moment. Valentine isn't a good person, instrumental in many of Lab Zero's diabolical experiments, including Painwheel, who is a major player in her tale. In a bid to break the cycle of 7 years, she willingly becomes the next Skullgirl after defeating Marie, hoping Painwheel has both the skill and drive to bring about Valentine's ultimate defeat and end the Skullheart's influence. Again, this is a good ninja story, and reminds me of the aspects I love about Marvel Comics' Black Widow. Plus,
Hello, nurse.
On the other hand, the other frequent mini-boss, Double, is a complex character willingly serving the Divine Trinity and shepherding their avatar, the Skullgirl. Double is a ruthless creature, tired of Marie's crusade to wipe out the Medici instead of forwarding the Trinity's plans, so she defeats 7 other women as potential candidates to host the Skullheart after Marie is defeated. Once one is chosen, Double devours the rest, adding them to her horrific flesh mass. We then pull back from a TV where the goddesses Aeon and Venus are playing the Skullgirls video game, explaining that it's what allows them to control the stories we've been watching unfold. Their mother calls them to dinner, and this is where Aeon clarifies the individual stories aren't canon and teases the full official story that is likely to include their own reality. With all that being said, what is Double exactly? She usually takes the form of a nun named Agatha to manipulate the masses, and she's this game's copy fighter, changing into different characters or horrific abominations with every normal and special attack. She's unique, I suppose. The game itself either offers us a wealth of answers to choose from or nebulous notions that aren't even treated as concrete in context. That's fine though. As enticing as Double's mystery is, I'm content to leave it as one for now, and accept we might get some clearer details in a future story. We transition now to the DLC characters presented during the Encore edition of the game, many of them kickstarted into being as the result of fan polls. We'll start off with my favorite, the first male fighter in Skullgirls, and an awesome answer to RoboCop and Inspector Gadget, Big Band. Originally a normal human beat cop named Ben Birdland, he busted the wrong arm of the Medicis who used their own police connections to leave Ben beaten nearly to death. If it weren't for the efforts of ASG Lab 8, Ben would be spending his remaining days in an iron lung. However, now he continues to fight crime as a noir-style detective armed with an entire body of pneumatic instruments to beat up bad guys, including the Skullgirl herself. He's huge and he hits you with flutes and horns and stuff. Incredible. Big Band is one of the good guys, and his story intersects with many of the main roster and gives brief showcase to some quirky NPCs, especially those related to Lab 8. As a man, Big Band can't wish from the Skullheart, but he has no desire to anyhow. He destroys the artifact, committed to fighting it again should it reappear in 7 years, and resolving to keep New Meridian safe in the meantime. Allies of the Medicis, the Contiello family were renowned opera stars until matriarch Selene came into possession of the Skullheart on her birthday 14 years ago. The Medicis wanted the artifact for their own ends, and so a fight ensued between the mob and the reanimated Contiello family. Saved from such a fate by her parasite, a worm dragon named Leviathan, Selene's daughter Sienna fights alongside the ASG to bring the threat to a heel, and she retired to her grave afterward, no longer animated by the Skullgirl's power. Now, the Skullgirl Marie sees her return from her grave and once again ready to fight. There's no Sienna on the character select screen, she goes by Squiggly, which appears to have just been a family nickname. She was actually supposed to be on the original roster, but the developers wanted another villainous perspective and opted for Valentine instead. Stop that. Squiggly mostly fights using Leviathan and has some attacks that make use of her family's iconic vocals. She bonds with Philia and Samson on her way to stop Marie, and has enough kindness in her heart to let Philia's actions classify her character instead of simply writing her off for being related to the Medicis. Double reveals that she was the mysterious guest that gave Squiggly's mother the Skull Heart, which is a fun tidbit for a villain to drop before getting their butt kicked by righteous heroes. The Skull Heart is destroyed, Squiggly is once again returned to the grave, and Philia mourns her new friend, grateful for the sacrifice she made to save everyone. Speaking of Philia, our next character is Fukua, an April Fool's joke making fun of Ultra Street Fighter 4's debut of Decaprate. Like that character is to Cammy, Fukua is more than just a palette swap of Philia, mechanically speaking, having some fun hair spike attacks and a cool ghosty form. Canonically, she's a creation of Lab Zero, a fused clone comprised of two souls, a melee fighter and a ranged assassin with a hair parasite named Shamon, as in... But calling her canon at all is questionable. Her tale is a weird fever dream that pokes fun at the notorious American Super Mario Bros. 2 ending, and has the least cutscenes of any individual storyline, really only being a horror movie-style nightmare Philia is having. Let's shuffle from one quick joke character to a quick meme character. While Robo Fortune has a more fleshed out story, it's silly and more full of pop culture references and internet memes than even the rest of the roster. A mechanical invention of brain drain meant to resemble Misfortune and deployed for his usual goals of killing the Skullgirl and retrieving the Skull Heart for Lab Zero, Robo Fortune was inspired by some goofy line reads Fortune's voice actors gave during a charity stream that snowballed into a fully fledged member of the roster. Her move list is indeed unique, punctuated by big ol' laser beams a la MVC2's Iron Man. She's fun, but I don't think she's meant to be taken seriously as far as the overall weave of the narrative is concerned. If you escort her to victory, she and Brain Drain build an army of giant evil catgirl robots to take over the world. Eliza is a lot, which is awesome because so much of her story sheds light on parts of the Skullgirl's overall world building, but there are so many twists and turns and so many lengthy cutscenes with character interactions and sassy dialogue from Eliza herself that it can be a lot to digest. To most people, Eliza is a beloved celebrity singer at New Meridian's premier nightclub, Bastet's Den. She's known for supporting charity blood drives and is generally adored by the populace. In reality, she's the host for the skeletal parasite Sekhmet, and the line between the two is blurred significantly over the years. The vital donations she's been taking actually go straight to Sekhmet to keep it sustained and Eliza herself young and beautiful, though she also uses it to fuel her sanguine sorcery. She has in fact been around for quite a long time, nearly conquering the known world as Neferu, the Crimson Scourge, centuries ago before she was battled back into the shadows. Her attacks are Egypt-themed and often call upon her goons, Horus the Owl Dude and Albus the Jackal. She can also unleash Sekhmet with its own ferocious moveset at the cost of rapidly draining health, though this can be restored by collecting the blobs that drop from her battered opponents. It's very cool. Vitale Medici threatens to expose her true nature, coercing her into helping Cerebella retrieve the life gem and eventually defeat the Skullgirl. Offended, this quickly turns into Eliza's path to power as she outsmarts her fellow villains and feeds on many of the heroes before finally defeating Marie. However, Double and the Skullheart attack her. As Queen Lamia's avatar, Double reveals Eliza killed Venus and Aeon, which is maybe what sent them to the meta realm in Double's ending? Hard to say. She wants revenge and Eliza is on the back foot, but descending into Double's fleshy realm, she feeds and restores her power, and the two clash with Eliza emerging the victor. She destroys the Skullheart and has enough time for a quick dip in the hot tub before Leviathan, Samson, and their hosts arrive to stop her. Surprisingly, they fail, and tired of opposition, Eliza transforms into a giant sanguine monster, taking her first steps toward a renewed attempt at world domination. Our last character for today is Beowulf, who pays homage to the real-world Old English epic through the lens of professional wrestling. There are so many loving references to both in his character's trappings, most obviously his pro wrestling moveset, steel chair weapon named Hurting, akin to the real Beowulf's sword Hrunting, and swinging around Grendel's severed arm. He also has some cool options once you get into a grapple, which is a fun way to express his fighting style. After bringing hope and glory to the people of New Meridian by defeating Grendel in a wrestling match that resulted in Grendel's death, wrestling matches are brutal in the Canopy Kingdom. His post-ring career wasn't as stellar, starring in several failed movies and infomercials, with his only highlight being a bit villain in Glorious Annie Symphony of Star Stuff. Beowulf is lured back into competition when his trophy of Grendel's arm is reanimated through the Skullgirl's power, and he goes to the Grand Cathedral to have it exorcised. A sleazy agent named Zane McDougall begins arranging bouts for him against some of the city's heroes, eventually revealing he was Double the whole time with the coolest cutscene since Jack the Ripper came out of that horse. Beowulf comes to terms with the fact that the Medicis rigged his fight against Grendel by drugging the poor bastard. Determined to prove his worth and honor Grendel's memory, he confronts the Skullgirl with hopes of defeating her and saving the world. Unfortunately, Grendel's arm is still easily manipulated by Marie, and worse yet, she still has Double to come to her defense. Fortunately, in a tease for future DLC, Annie herself arrives to rescue Beowulf, and the two vanquish their foes and smash the Skullheart in a tribute to Grendel. Annie concludes their efforts by offering Beowulf a new job on her show, this time as a hero. One way or another, this won't be the last time we examine the Skullgirls on this show. I'm hoping we explore more than 4 characters when that time comes, and I believe that time will come, as the game has surpassed all of the many adversities thrown its way so far. If you can't stem your Skullgirls craving until then, go ahead and buy the game, interact with the fandom wiki and other folks who share your passion. I have only given you a glimpse of the tip of the iceberg. The power is now in your hands to go explore the Canopy Kingdom to its furthest reaches. As for us, next month on Violent Profiles, we finally have the opportunity to explore an unquestionably obscure fighting game I wanted to cover seasons ago. Why? Because one of my friends bought it in high school and I played it some. Nostalgia is a powerful motivator and limited resource. To see what I'm talking about right now, head to the Patreon and subscribe at the $5 tier to get episodes of this show a month early, as well as earning recognition among the high scores currently listed on screen. Plus, it makes me happy. Until next time, white out.